Again, although a little rainy outside, we are certainly happy and grateful in our hearts to be here again on Monday morning, 10 o'clock, with our morning chat about leadership. And I'm truly honored today that I get to spend some time with a friend who I've looked up to for many years. We have had contact for about, well, probably over a decade through our HLNY connections. Somebody who leads with love, somebody who leads with tenacity, and really is somebody we all look up to in the industry of recruitment, but also helping people to guide, to find the right passions in life, as she has with her team. So, Lea Tal, welcome this morning. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your company and how you have become who you are today, and then we'll dive a little bit into asking the question, what is the role of the recruiter? And we'll take the conversation from there. And again, good morning, and thank you to the show today.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Walter. Thank you for having me, and I'm delighted. We are an organization that is very much remembering what our task is, which is to run along healthcare, and a side of our heart is very much about helping and being involved, mentoring. Our staff is we have about 30 people here. We've grown uh, in the last 16 years, and really feel that we are a part of healthcare. We may not be direct care, we may not be uh, on site, but we are definitely very engaged and very involved with our clients and our candidates, and trying to make this a little bit of a easier flow to align talent with the right organization.
Excellent. So when I always talk about, my students and mentees about aligning the four P's, purpose and passion, which comes at the heart level, and people and process. What was it in the recruitment world and that really kind of like grabbed your heart and said, this is something I want to do?
I think that once a recruiter develops a relationship with a client and really understands that piece of the puzzle, and then we are able to identify and find the other piece of the puzzle that can really make a match as close as possible. There's never going to be 10 out of 10. But that word passion is really important. I think a lot of people forget during the process how important passion is, not just for what you do, but when you are in the middle of either working with somebody, or perhaps looking for a new home, in really aligning yourself with the passion of what that organization needs.
Yeah, that is. It's all about making the connections, right? It's the purpose and passion with the people and the process, and if you can align that to the company and make it a win-win scenario for both the candidate and the healthcare facility you're recruiting for, I'm sure that brings a great amount of satisfaction. I think a long time ago, Dr. Vajou told me to listen. There are two kinds of people in the healthcare world: those who take care of patients, and then those who take care of people who take care of patients. And I see my role as developing emerging leaders. I see your role as part of recruiting and placement. As those, we can have a real impact on patient outcomes and quality and safety if we find the right people and help shape their futures. So with that said, one question I come across often. I wrote about that in my book some time ago a little bit, but I would love for you to expand upon that. What is the role of a recruiter? Because there's all kinds of misnomers about that. Would you mind clarifying what the role of a recruiter is for a young careerist all the way up to a more executive level?
I believe, first of all, I want to tell you how much I respect Dr. Raju as well. I heard him at a conference, and what he said really struck home for me. He mentioned that when you are interviewing people and have a size 10 shoe, if somebody's not quite that size, that you don't cut off their toes. You really try to make the right fit. And that's something that is really important to realize, that everybody is an individual. Everybody's very different. As far as the role of a recruiter, I think that you mentioned HLNY. Uh, I've listened to what they had, the roundtable with the chiefs, and they have executives who have reached that C-suite, and talking about what is the role that recruiters played for them to achieve their C-suite. And they mentioned two things. They mentioned that to collaborate, to have a relationship, to have a trust with a recruiter, and also making sure that you have mentorship. I
Yeah.
think the role of a recruiter is really to run alongside and try to make that connection between the two entities, to really understand what it is that the client, their passion, their mission is about, and then to find on the other side what is a good fit for that individual, not just from the skill set. The skill set is easier to assess. You look at a resume, you read it, you understand the background, you have an assessment. I think what I've learned over the years is to really try to hone in and try to understand the soft skills. What is the cultural fit? What is the individual's in, integral part of that individual, and how this is going to be a fit. A recruiter has a lot of goals. I think that a recruiter that one can trust starts with understanding um, the jumping board of where we're starting to look for an individual that has the ability to join the organization. And I think it's really, when I analyze it, it's the difference between the art and the science of the organization. So I think the science is, as I mentioned, it's really the skills, and then the art is really making that connection and making sure that you're going to get at least 8 or 9 out of 10.
Yeah, very good. So that is very interesting. With that said, of course, I think there's a lot of especially the men to the early careers, the mid careers who are looking to go up the ladder, and they first, they from applying straight to the hospital now, maybe starting to think about depending a little bit more on the network. I think it is pretty well defined that most likely your next position from a director up is coming through your network, including recruiters, rather than just applying straight out. Um, do you see that many people, come to you, to your organization, uh, not well prepared or well positioned, and kind of look at you as a recruiter or a recruiting agency to prepare them for an interview? And is that really the role of the recruiter to do that?
It's an interesting question. Um, you're right. Some people really are very prepared. They are uh, involved with networking. They're involved in really understanding what the organization is that they might be looking at. They're involved with um, really anticipating what might be needed for their next move. I think that some people are totally unprepared. They call here thinking that there's magic that a recruiter can do. A recruiter is really an ally. Is really a relationship, and it's something that doesn't happen with one phone call. It doesn't happen with one email. It really is a an established relationship that should be long term, and the trust should be there for the recruiter to really have the best interest. Many people call me, and when I speak to them, I would say probably 1 out of 4. I tell them to stay where they are. They really are not going to find greener grass somewhere else, and that they should um, look for additional movement internally. They're a known entity. Um, some people assume because they're smart, or maybe just finished a program or got their master's, that now that they can move into another role, which really is not necessarily what they've done in the past. For instance, we have a lot of people that come into operations that have a background in revenue, or they have a background in finance. It does not mean that you're ready for operations necessarily as your career evolves. And I tell them, look internally. You're a known entity. Um, Develop a rapport with people that you either respect or trust, and see if you can move that way. It isn't that a recruiter can really find a job in most cases for somebody who's smart and capable. It really has to have the skill set. A client coming to a recruiter is looking for particular nuances, particular background, particular experience. And if the individual is really looking to continue to evolve and they don't have those basics, it's very hard for a recruiter to help them.
Yeah, you can only make up stretch the reality so far, of course, right? So One of the things that I believe in is to help, especially the early careers, to develop an individual development plan. In other words, really, you have to kind of think, what is your pathway going to be like? And when I have a conversation with them, and similar to what you say, is listen, maybe you look within your organization. I think that traditionally speaking, people always think that they need to go up one rank in the organization, and if they don't, and then they somehow are not making it or not making progress. I believe that it is far more important to be able to gain valuable experience across the entire value stream. So making a left-hand turn or right-hand turn rather than straight up or what we call lateral movement can really be powerful. So again, going back to people who are not being prepared per se, and of course we have the 20, 30, 40% who is prepared, who are quite capable, and you can obviously find a placement for them. What is it that you would recommend those who are not quite ready? What can they do, and what should they focus on in order to be ready for either a lateral or an upward promotion opportunity outside of their own organizations?
I think the mentorship point, I want to go back to it. Internal mentorship or somebody that you trust to help navigate is really important. I think preparing is looking at organizations where you can join and become consistently available for that organization. It's not like going once or twice and being frustrated. I think a lot of it is really groundwork. You have to be you have to stand aside. You have to stand differently than everybody else if you want to get ahead. It's just it's sweat equity. There's nothing that you can take away from the fact that if you want to move forward, and it's interesting because some people call me and they'll say, "Well, I'm ready for whatever the title is," and I, and the titles are so generic from institution to other institution. It's really the experience. It's really the impact that you make. And the first thing I ask is, what salary range are you expecting? Because at that point, I can kind of determine where they are in the hierarchy of their career path. It's not about a title.
Yeah. So actually, that's a good segue to talk about it. Is that we've experienced, you and I have spoken about that. That often what the posting is and what the actual job is, it could be two different things, right? There's not because HR might post it, does not necessarily mean it accurately reflects, what the job entails. So when you start working with a client and working on it, on potential placement, you have found some connections, you find there is some chemistry, some skills, knowledge, and abilities that are aligned. What is it that you zero in as a in the process of making sure that there's alignment, and that also what are the questions that a good candidate should be asking of a recruiter in order to make sure that what the job they have a deeper understanding what the job really is versus what the job description says.
So some institutions are very careful with the job descriptions that they give us, and I think that for us, we really like to speak to the hiring manager so that we get the nuances that are not necessarily in a generic HR document. I think that one has to really understand a lot more than just the generic job description. I think uh, it, it's there's so many variables that we get when we speak to people. We really try to get the personality. For us,
Yeah,
the main focus has been, but it's changing a little bit, is really understanding how we match up the culture. Because the skill sets is easy for us to ascertain and to really assess. But it's really the gut feeling. There's an intellectual process that goes with understanding the skill set and the fit, but then the gut feeling of how is this person going to interact with our clients. Our biggest pleasure is to build teams around clients and really get that whole network going. But now we've moved into a lot more of the scientific approach. We're doing a lot more with, we have an internal consultant that's working with us who's really helping us to ask the right questions. There's some important questions that need to be asked, not just having to do with the work history. It has to be questions such as successes. Tell me about successes. Almost more importantly, tell me about failures and tell me what you learned from them. It really goes to show the maturity and the comprehension of this individual, and are they really ready for the next level in self-analysis. Um, it's very interesting, the recruitment. It's not just about putting a body in that's going to be, if you have the technical skills to work in a lab. It's really much more of uh, the bigger success. We always are very proud of the fact that 50% of relationships in marriage don't work, and our percentages are closer to 90%. And I think it's the training that we have with our recruiters in what really to listen for, what really to assess, how really to navigate. And there's so much art in recruiting that people don't see that goes on behind the scenes. And working with candidates is a pleasure because many of the people that we work with, we find them as, in their early career, and we feel very proud that we're able to place them in an organization where they will continue to grow, where they'll be mentored, where they become, much more evolved.
Yeah, I think that the key here is right is that you want a long-term relationship with your client, so you have to be careful who you place and to make sure that they have the right chemistry, which is harder to overcome than providing them with the right skills, knowledge, and abilities. Of course, on the flip side, you would love to have a long-term relationship with the client as they progress through their career and be able to place them more than once going forward. So let's say that the person has gone through the interview process, as you know, there's alignment, and there's now an agreement on your client's part that an offer is going to be made. Now, the interesting part here is that who we call it in real estate the fiduciary relationship lies between the client, the healthcare facility, and the recruiter, not the recruiter and the person you're trying to place per se. How can a candidate have a conversation with a recruiter when it comes down to these very sensitive topics of salaries and benefits, and especially now post COVID, can I work hybrid? Right? Is there an opportunity to have a mixed, in a hybrid type schedule? How does someone approach that and feel that there's a sense of trust and security to do this without jeopardizing the job itself?
You're talking about being very open initially with
Yes.
with the recruiter.
Yeah. How can a client is not a healthcare client, but how can a person like myself who's working
A
with a recruiter,
candidate.
yeah, a candidate, how can I feel that I can have an open discussion with a recruiter once an offer has been made? So help me through the negotiation process of actually getting the job and aligning the salaries and benefits as well.
So the really the openness and the information that's passed starts much sooner than the offer stage. And yes, many of our candidates become our clients, and when we place people at senior levels, then we do build that team that we're very proud of. But I think that the relationship starts right from the beginning, being very straightforward. We can't ask people what they're making, so we ask people, what are you really realistically looking for? And I would say that 8 out of 10 times people tell us what they're making. It's a good gauge for us because some people, no, not some, most people feel that they've been overworked and underpaid for many years. When they move to another position, um, that gap is going to close. But when you face the reality of moving to the next facility or organization, there's a parity issue that doesn't really take into consideration that the person feels that they should close that big financial gap. So there's a lot of nuances that happen before. We try when we work with a candidate right from the start to be very realistic. Sometimes when we feel somebody's a really strong candidate, we'll start talking about counteroffers right away. The biggest pain point for us and the biggest situation right now is really about counteroffers. Many organizations are using counteroffers as a retention method, which has a lot of negative nuances because of the rest of the staff, not just this individual, how they see this counteroffer situation unfolding, and why does it take somebody saying that they're leaving to give them a raise, and how does that affect the rest of the staff? So there's a lot of nuances that happen during the process. It's not at the end of trying to get everything that we want to see on the table. The hybrid situation is also very unique. I think that what's happened right now in what we have is we have uh, the COVID last 2 years has changed the way everything is done. It's changed the way we recruit. It's changed the way that people hire. It's changed the way people are negotiating. It's really a unique time. It's much more challenging than ever before. We have clients that had never believed in anybody working off site, hiring people across the country because they need a skill set. We have people that do not want to go back to the office at all. We have people that are willing to do a hybrid. So there's a constant adjustment from facility to the individual to the type of job that they're going to be doing. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done through the process, not at the end.
Yeah. Thank you for laying that out, and I think that's really important to know that that you can have a dialogue, and you need to find alignment there too, not just on the side of what the technical skills are needed or what the job entails. So I want to shift the focus because we're already 21 minutes into it. I know you and I can probably talk about this for about a couple of hours, but we have 6 good minutes left before you can give your final words of wisdom. I want to, one of the things I want to acknowledge, right, is that you have been very early, always been a prominent person in the Healthcare Leaders of New York organization by participating, by sponsoring. Why is that important to you?
I like to really be involved with my clients. My clients are um, in the everyday, day to day service line, whether they're in the finance area, whether they're operations, whether they're clinical. I go to these meetings, and I am a sponsor of the Healthcare Leaders of New York. Um, I go because I want to hear the pain points. I can't really run alongside a client and really understand the nuances, the subtext, unless I know what they're living through. I go to also to HFMA, and sometimes those conferences are very important too. I like to hear the pain points from the financial aspect because we work so much on the clinical and operational side, but the finance side is such an important part of health. So I'm very involved, and I think I'm probably one of the few vendors that goes to almost every event.
Yeah, listen, the thing I love is that it's not just TAL Healthcare. It is we get Leah, we get the person, the personality, and I think that is something that we always say it's like networking is about not about relating to each other, not comparing, and the fact that you're putting yourself out there, you make yourself available. But I think that also you have made a choice online, on LinkedIn and other social media platforms that you are sharing good stories and great information. And I would really encourage, and I try to post it on my young professional group as often as I can, because I believe that growth comes from like an IV drip rate, right? By every day a little bit, 2 to 3 minutes of knowledge and information, 30 minutes of our chats on Monday morning to help continue that growth of mindset and that growth of behavior. So with that said, what is it that you would like to get across to a potential candidate? That what can they do to be prepared? What can they do to be in a better position when they find something of interest, when they pick up the telephone call or they email your organization and say, "Hey, listen, I think that I found something of interest." What can they do to be in the best possible position to make a connection?
So I believe in making a. It's all about relationships, whichever way you want to dice it and slice it. Start building that relationship with a recruiter that you trust early on. The part of interviewing is one segment that once you are um, ready to look at a position, once you've built trust with a recruiter, I think it's really not understood what a recruiter can bring to the table. Maybe many people are today with social media just applying everywhere. There's a lot of, from what I hear from HR, there's a lot of concern when somebody over applies to one facility for many jobs. Uh, there are a lot of nuances that happen. But I think that the main thing to remember is about a long-term relationship with a recruiter who will guide you in a very straightforward and honest way, will coach you through an interview process. There are many nuances that need to be done. People understand that they're looking for innate intelligence, emotional intelligence, a good work ethic. But what people don't understand is how much passion you need to show, passion for what you do, passion for where you're interviewing. The main thing that I've been working on is a book by an author called Marshall Goldsmith, which is "What Got You Here Won't Get You There." The playing field right now has really evolved so differently, and there's so many um, additional hurdles to get through in order to find the right home and the right position. That if you can find a recruiter that will allow you to send a resume if we're not working with somebody, we're not holding anybody back, but also to really not just get so frustrated that you get click happy and you start clicking. You take a weekend and you're just sending out your resume anywhere that it could go. It is not a strategic way to work.
I think that is rock solid advice, and it is, yeah, and that's the difference between responding and reacting, right? You react without deep thought and consideration. You respond by putting some time and effort into it, and do things in a meaningful way. And especially as you start climbing a career ladder, to just do things blindly without making the connections. And remember that the relationship is a two-way relationship, right? It's not just you asking things off the recruiter to do for you. It is, it's okay to from time to time to check in and say, hey, how are you? Yeah, how is life, right? Maybe there's more to talk about than the next role, the next job that is out there. Um, Again, I'm looking at all of the comments that are on the side. Listen, I clearly loved and appreciated, and your kindness, the way you have interacted with your clients in the past is clearly shown in the comment section over here. Again, I want to really thank you for joining me today on the morning chat. I hope it went much better than you had hope for it. I know you were a little nervous about this whole stuff, but you did great, right? I think there were all the things we talked about that are important to candidates as well as clients. They can review this back and take that to heart, and I know they will be better off because of that. With just a quick reference back, Dr. Raju is actually going to come on the show in early September, so I
Okay.
look forward to having him join. Next week, we're going to be joined by an author, Jessica Rose Johnson. She has written a book recently also around 360 type leadership, and look forward to having a chat with her. As always, I look forward to our continued working together, collaborating to make sure that we have cleared the path and support our early careers, mid careers, and those people who are looking to advance themselves to make sure that they have the right skills, knowledge, abilities, and really most importantly, that they have the right behaviors. And I find that the greatest gap that I've seen in the work that I do is there are lots of people who are great doers, but they're not so great at leadership, and it's not because of their fault. It's because they just don't have learned and the behaviors that go alongside that, and that is something that will help them set up for greater success as being recruited by you to be placed in a wonderful organization where they can have a long, prosperous career. So again, let's do this again in a few months or whenever you
Yes,
feel like you're
a
coming on. We can
pleasure.
talk more. Thank you,
Thank you.
thank you, and we'll talk real soon again. Lea Tal, thank you, and audience, thank you for joining us this morning. I think we have probably the most we ever had, and we'll continue to grow on that. Thank you, and we'll see you again Monday morning next week, 10 o'clock, same place, same time, with Jessica Rose Johnson. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Lea.
Walter.